Michelle Seiler Tucker, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'm excited to have you. I don't know if you knew this, but I believe that entrepreneurs and business owners are like the invisible heroes of the American economy. You think about, most 98% of the businesses, I was blown away by this fact that 98% of the businesses in the US have 20 or less employees. And that means that the owner is like wearing all these different hats, and yet they risk their future, they risk their family's future. And what do? They bring us these products and services that improve our lives. And in aggregate, they employ almost half the workforce in the US. And these are very important people. And
Right.
and I love the name of your book. Your book is Exit Rich, the 6P method to sell your business for a huge profit. What your team is the leading authorities on buying, selling, fixing, and growing businesses. What in the world, Michelle, why did you plant your flag right in the middle of this big, ambitious area that makes such a big difference?
Well, I planted my flag here because I've been in this industry for 20 years, selling over 1,000 businesses. And I'm an entrepreneur. I'm unlike most brokers or advisors, M&A advisors. I actually own businesses. I've actually been, I actually am an entrepreneur. I've been on the other side of the desk making all the tough decisions. And I still am on the other side of the desk making a lot of tough decisions because I own multiple companies. And I just realized, when I wrote my first book in 2013, which was Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth, and I did the research and realized that 95% of all startups, 1 to 5 years, is that the most risk would go out of business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote Exit Rich in 2019, 2020, and did the exact same research and found out that the business landscape has really flip-flopped. It's changed dramatically. So where it used to be that 95% of startups will go out of business, now it's only 30%. So those startups from those 1 to 5 years, only 30% will go out of business now. However, listen to this statistic: there's 30.2 million businesses in the United States, which employs over half the U.S. workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, 98% of them has less than 20 employees, but when we lose small business, we lose jobs. When you lose jobs, you lose spending power. When you lose spending power, more small businesses will close. So back to the business flip flop. 30% of startups will go out of business, which it used to be 95%. However, out of 27.6 million companies, those businesses that have been in business 10 years or longer, 70% of those businesses will go out of business. So you see how it flip flopped, right? And it used to be, gosh, if you've been in business 8, 9, 10 years, you're golden. You're going to be in business for decades. You hear about the big public companies all the time, like Toys R Us in business 75 years, goes out of business. Kmart, Steinmart, Montgomery Ward, Pier 1, GNC closing down 900 locations. Godiva, our very favorite chocolate, is closing down 1,500 stores. So this is a huge, huge, huge problem because these baby boomers, these business owners are exiting poor. They're selling for pennies on the dollar. They're closing their business, or even worse, they're filing bankruptcy. And the media doesn't talk about that. The media only wants to talk about the public companies. They don't want to
Right.
talk about all the private companies on every street corner in every town, in
Right.
every state across our great nation. And like I said, these business owners are losing everything. So that's why I stuck my flag here. I'm so passionate about entrepreneurship. I feel like baby boomers, business owners, Generation X has poured their heart, their soul, their money, into their businesses, growing them for years and years and years. And they've made huge sacrifices along the way. I talked to a business owner who told me he hasn't taken a vacation in 9 years.
Right.
I talked to another business owner. He says, I've never been to my kids' plays or sporting events, etc. So it's really sad that this is how their legacy ends up, is in the ground, and that they lose everything and they can't really retire and enjoy the fruits of their labor. So
Exactly.
this is my mission. This is my passion. Exit Rich is not just about selling your business. Exit Rich is about building a sustainable, scalable, asset. So when you're ready, you actually have something that's sellable. I mean, there's a reason that 80% of businesses don't sell. They don't sell because number one, business owners never ever think about their exit until a catastrophic event occurs.
Mm-hmm.
Internal or external. Internal is health issues, partner disputes, divorce, death. External is COVID. You're in it, and that's the worst time to sell your business because your business is going down. Best time to sell your business is when you're in your prime and your business is booming. So that's why we talk about the STGPS exit model in my book, Exit Rich. And then we work with clients to really build their foundation on what I call the 6 Ps. So they do have a sellable asset.
Yeah. So here's the thing that really hit me is like you get into this mode starting a business and you're like, okay, I need to make it 3 years. I need to make it 5 years. And so you start to like, I think I made it, but I think there's this point where you go, wait a minute, I'm doing all this hard work. What am I going to have to show for all this hard work later on? And so it's like, can you think about it? That means I'm going to have to sell my business or I'm going to need someone to kind of take over after this. So there's some questions I want to ask you. And it's like, so how do you prepare to sell my business, right?
Yeah. So this is how we do it. Number one, you really should plan your exit from the start. You
Right.
really should plan your exit strategy from day one of buying or starting a business. You don't wait until you're tired. You don't wait till you're burned out. You don't wait till you're diagnosed with cancer or something. And it's unfortunate because I had a sweet little old lady call me the other day and she's like, my husband just dropped dead of a heart attack. And I've been told there's a lot of debt. Can you sell his business? And so I started asking her questions and she knows nothing about his business, but he had a construction company, he had no employees, had all subcontractors, all the data was in his head. So when he died, the business dies. So he does not have a sellable business. So business owners really should be thinking about not only themselves, not only their business, not only their employees, but their family and their families and setting their families up for success because this little lady who's probably in her 70s has no idea what to do. And now she might have to file bankruptcy because he didn't have an exit plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's sobering.
So I tell my clients to follow the STGPS exit model. I'll take you through that real quick if you want to.
Yes.
So number one is when you want to drive somewhere, you pull out your phone, you go into Google Maps. Most of us use Google Maps, and you plug in what do you plug in?
You plug in your GPS.
You plug
put
in your
a
destination. You know where you're driving to. If you don't plug in your destination, what's going to happen?
You're just going to wander around.
You're just going to wander around. And that's what business owners are doing, unfortunately. Business owners don't plan to fail. They fail to plan. And business owners are wandering around, driving in circles, driving up and down the financial hills to end up nowhere, to end up broke, to end up exiting poor. So I tell my clients, you got to start somewhere. First thing you do is you pick a number. So you need to figure out what's your destination, what's your end game, what's your desired sales price. Pick a number. It doesn't matter what it is, just pick a number. So let's say you want to sell it for $20 million, right? There's a number. Then what does the GPS model need to know? Where you're starting from. What's your current location? And in other words, what's your current business worth, your current business valuation? Now, I don't know if you'd be surprised about this, but most business owners never, ever get a valuation on their business.
Wow. It's like
I talked to a business owner the other day, been in business 50 years, never had a business evaluation. We go to the doctor once a year to make sure our heart's still ticking and we're still kicking. We drive our car to the shop to make sure that we get a tune-up and checkup on our car. But we don't get an annual business valuation checkup. That's financial suicide. A lot of people spend more time, taking care of their car than they take care, making sure their business is in good health. So you need to know where you're starting from. So if you want to sell for 20 million, know what you're worth today. Let's say you're worth $5 million today. Now, what do you need to know? You need to know time frame. Let's say you want to do it in 10 years. So now you have a start of a plan. $20 million or $5 million. I'm going to do this in 10 years. Okay. Then you need to know, well, who's my buyers going to be? Notice how I said buyers and not buyer.
Mm.
Sellers come to me all the time and say, Michelle, I just need you to represent me with this one buyer. And I'm like, big mistake. And they're like, why? And I said, because that buyer falls apart. In all likelihood, you got about a 98% chance that that buyer is not going to buy your business. A 2% chance that they will. Where are your backup buyers? They don't have any. So you never want to put all your eggs in one buyer's basket. Plus, if you want to get the highest possible price, you need competition. So you need more buyers looking at it, so they will bid against each other and pay you a higher price. So there are 5 types of buyers. Number 1 is turnaround specialists. 90% of buyers are turnaround specialists. I'm sorry, let me start that over. 90% of buyers are first-time buyers.
First time?
First-time buyers. First-time
Mhm.
buyers buy small companies. They buy coffee shops. They buy laundromats. They buy dry cleaners, restaurants, because they're leaving corporate America and they don't have a lot of money to invest.
Mhm.
So second type of buyer is turnaround specialists. They're not going to buy your $20 million company because they buy distressed assets. Third type of buyer is private equity groups, and they buy based on platforms and add-ons. They will look at your business if you have over, $2-3 million in EBITDA. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. And then you have strategic competitors. Now, strategics and competitors, Steve, are typically the best type of buyers because they buy synergies. They're taking advantage of economy of scales. They're looking at what overhead they can cut so that they can increase EBITDA from day one of closing. So
Mhm.
they'll pay a higher multiple than most other buyers. And then you have sophisticated buyers is a 5th type of buyer, serial entrepreneurs. They're industry agnostic. They chase EBITDA. So those are your 5 types of buyers. Now you need to know, well, what's my financial criteria have to be? If I want to sell for $20 million, where's the gross revenue, gross profit margin need to be? Where's the EBITDA need to be? I'm going to tell you, if you want to sell for $5 million, your EBITDA needs to be between $3 million to $5 million, depending upon your synergies. Then you need to know, well, what synergies are they looking for? What characteristics is this buyer looking for? And then you need to build your business based upon those characteristics, based upon those 6 Ps that I outlined in Exit Rich. The last step in the exit model is why. What's your why? We all have to have a powerful, powerful why, a powerful, powerful reason to keep us motivated, to keep us in the game, to keep us, weathering the financial storms and all the catastrophic events that occur. So because if it was easy to sell a $20 million company, Steve, everybody would be doing it. So you
Mhm.
really have to have a powerful why. So that's the GPS exit model. Then what I do is I work with my clients on building their business on what I call the 6 Ps.
Excellent. So if I'm in a place, maybe I've followed your model and I'm in a good, strong position, then I'm sure that I would waver on whether should I sell my business or keep it.
So here's the deal. You should always build your business as if you're going to sell it one day, because nothing lasts forever. We don't last forever, unfortunately. There's a cycle. There's a human cycle and a business cycle. Businesses follow the same cycle as a human. You're born, you're in the incubator. You go from incubator to an infant, to a toddler, to a teenager, to an
Mhm.
adult, which is in your prime, to senior citizen, to death. So what goes up must come down. And the bottom line is you don't live forever. Look at the little old lady that called me. And her husband died from a heart attack. You
Right.
always build the business so it's sellable if you get in a position where you need to sell because you had a heart attack and you want to make sure your family is taken care of, or you're just diagnosed with cancer, or something happens. So also, things don't last forever. Remember, 70% of businesses are going out of business, have been in business for over 10 years.
Wow.
And they're not sellable because business owners have the wrong mindset. Should I sell my business? You should build your business as if it will be sellable, just like, your house, right? One day you might want to sell your house and downsize when your kids go to college. Nobody wants to buy a dump of a house. Nobody wants to buy a dump of a business. So you should always build it with the end in mind. And if you can keep on it, if you can keep it and you want to, that's fine. At least you have a sustainable business that's scalable, that's profitable, and you can stay in business, or maybe your children will take it over. But you always should build it to sell. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
That's
That's
why 70% of business owners, that's why there's so many bankruptcies right now, because business owners are thinking the wrong way. I may never want to sell it. It doesn't matter if you never want to sell it. What matters is you build it to sell. So if you ever get in a position where you want to sell it one day, or you need to sell it one day, then you need to make sure it's sellable, because here's the deal. There's 5 ways to exit the company. One way is legacy, transferring your legacy. Guess what? Your kids don't want your business anymore. I'm sorry to break this to you, but it used to be that businesses were handed from generation to generation to generation. But now the kids don't want their parents' business. They want to go, create their own masterpiece. They don't want to walk in mommy and daddy's footprints. Or an ESOP, which is selling to employees, and that's a slippery slope. You have to be very careful about an ESOP. And less than 10% of business transactions are done from ESOPs. You could hire a manager to run the company, but then you're really still tied to it. So that's not really working. Or you can sell a percentage of it, or you can sell 100%. Those are the 5 ways to really exit. The other ways is to sell for pennies on the dollar, close your business, or file bankruptcy. So what's your choice? What would you prefer?
yeah. So can you sell a business that isn't profitable?
Yes, if they have the right synergies. Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp, and WhatsApp was hemorrhaging. But WhatsApp had a synergy that Facebook wanted. They had over 1 billion users. And Facebook knew that they could ROI and they could monetize on the sell on buying Facebook. So if you're losing money, you have to have some good synergies. SaaS businesses sell all the time, and they're not making a profit, but they have the synergies. They have the synergies that other buyers want. So you have to have the synergies. If you don't have the synergies, then no, it might be able to still sell, but it's not going to maximize value.
So you're listening to Michelle Seiler Tucker on the ROI Online Podcast. You may be watching as well. Here's a teaser. We're going to have a special exclusive piece on our YouTube channel, and we're going to talk about that WhatsApp case, because there's a secret thing called databases that you're going to want to know about. So can I sell my business without a broker, Michelle?
So if you need a heart surgery, are you going to cut your heart out? Are you going to cut your chest open, pull out your heart, and operate on yourself?
No.
So why would you try to sell your most valuable asset when you have zero experience in selling businesses, zero experience in how to do evaluations, zero experience in how to find buyers, zero experience in how to keep things confidential? And confidentiality is typically the number one priority to business owners. How you're going to market the business, how you're going to get multiple buyers, how you're going to create a bidding war, how you're going to identify those synergies, how you're going to be able to build economies of scale for the buyers so that they can decrease overhead and increase EBITDA. How you going to get a 65% higher sales price on your business versus what it was appraised for all by yourself? So the answer is no. That's financial suicide.
I love that answer. When you talk about starting to just look at your business as if you're going to sell it, you think about all the things that changes in your mind and what you need to put in place to make it more valuable later on. Those would be systems and processes that remove you from needing to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have to be there to run it, if all the value's on you, then they're going to want you to hang around even though you sold it. So you're still going to be working.
So, well, here's the thing. This is what we're going to talk about, the 6 P's, because the 6 P's are really crucial for your audience to hear. The 6 P's is the infrastructure to build a sustainable, scalable asset. So when you're ready, you actually have something that people want to buy. The problem is most business owners never build their business to something that a buyer actually wants to buy. That's why 80% of businesses don't sell. So number 1 is people. If you are the owner and you're tied to the business and the business cannot operate without you, then you don't have a business. You have a glorified job in which you go to work at every day versus a business that works for you. Buyers don't want to buy a job. They want to buy a business. So entrepreneurs, listen up. You got to stop wanting to do everything yourself. You'll never grow unless you let go of the control. You can't control everything. You need to focus on your strengths because you're not good at everything. I'm not good at everything. Nobody's good at everything. Figure out your strengths, focus on your strengths, hire your weaknesses, get the right people in the right positions. People is the first P. You don't build a business, you build people and they build the business. So you need to get the right people in the right seats, and you need to ask the who questions, Steve. Who opens the doors? Who handles customer service? Who handles legal? Who handles accounting? Who handles marketing? Who handles manufacturing, transportation, logistics, environmental, etc.? The list goes on and on. All entrepreneurs should stop right now, pause this podcast, and write down your list of all the who's in your company and put down the names next to each who. Here's a clue. You should never be next to the who.
Amen.
You should never be next to the who, because if you are, then the business can't run without you and you will never maximize value. I have a dentist that called me to sell his business, been in practice 45 years. One dentist and 3 dental hygienists. He's like, Michelle, I can't stay. I'm exhausted. It's 45 years. And I'm like, you know what? Too bad. You should have figured about this a long time ago. You're either going to have to stay for 2 or 3 years, and the purchase price will be dependent upon you staying. It's going to be tied to you staying, or get an associate. But you have nothing to sell because the business is you. And when you leave, the patients leave. All right. So people is very important. The second P is product. You got to ask yourself, is your product thriving or dying? Is it on the way up or on the way out? Do you have an Amazon way up here, or do you have a Blockbuster? And let me tell you, because you didn't ask me yet, Michelle, why are 70% of these businesses going out of business? Have been in business 10 years or longer. Well, here's the answer, Steve. It's because these businesses that are going out of business, it's because they stopped doing one thing and one thing only. They stopped doing what I call AIM. 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 Always innovate and market. Always innovate. Okay. Product is innovation. Innovation. So Blockbuster saw Netflix. They did nothing about it. They had the opportunity to buy Netflix. They sat back fat and happy and out of business. Toys R Us, in business 70 years, did nothing different. Zero innovation, and wonder why they went out of business. So innovation is key, especially with this pandemic right now. So here's 3 great questions for you to ask yourself.
Write them down.
Write them down. And you know what? You probably have to hire an expert, get a mentor, get Steve, get somebody to help you figure this out. Because when you're in your fog, guess what, Steve? It's foggy. It's foggy.
Yes.
So you need an outsider's perspective to help you really see things that you're not seeing clearly because you're in the middle of your chaos. So 3 questions. Amazon did this in the 90s. Ask yourself, what business are you in? Amazon asked themselves, what business are we in?
Well, they were in the book business, but they actually...
Bingo. Well, stop right there, Steve, because you can't give away the answers. They were in the book selling business, right?
Yes.
What was the next question to ask themselves? What did we do better? What do we do better than anybody else? Anybody else? And they said fulfillment. We do fulfillment better than anybody else. The last most important question is, what business should we be in? Now, go, Steve.
Logistics. They should be shipping all the products to you.
Absolutely. They should be in a fulfillment business. And they're like, ding, 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 dong, dong, dong. We should be in a fulfillment business. Those 3 questions right there transform Amazon from a small bookseller to a multi-billion-dollar worldwide conglomerate that they are today. And so, Steve, you do consulting, right? You do coaching, you do mentoring. So you should work with your clients on those questions, because it's hard for business owners to say, well, all right, we know what we do. What do we do really, really well? And then it's hard for them to say, what should we do? What business should we be in?
Right.
So that's product. You have to pivot. You have to innovate. Let me tell you why so many business owners are in trouble right now because of COVID. It's because they never diversify. They have one revenue center, and they have about 1 to 3 months of working capital, and then they wonder why they're out of business. You got to be diversified. I have multiple companies. So if one business is bad or one business does not do good this year, I've got other businesses that pay me, right? And you should have a year's worth of working capital. 1 year, at least 1 year's worth of working capital.
That's easy said, hard to do.
Easy said, hard to do.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said business was easy.
No.
But you know what? Do what's easy and life becomes hard. Do what's hard and life becomes easy.
Love that. Number 3, P.
Processes. So
Process.
processes is number 3. And let me just, and you probably already know this because you work with business owners. Most business owners don't think about processes. It's kind of like exit strategy. They don't think about processes until something bad happens in their company. And then they're like, oh,
Right.
we need a process for that. You know, we're selling a manufacturing company and they had a catastrophic event occur on the manufacturing floor and
Hmm.
they're going to get sued from everybody and they'll probably end up out of business filing bankruptcy, unfortunately. And the owner says to me, you know, we really need a health and safety process for that. And I'm like, you needed it before this. So you really should think about your processes early on, tweak them as you go, because of course you're going to enhance your processes, you're going to tweak your processes. But here's where most business owners get it wrong, Steve. I think this is very important. Most business owners design their processes around their agenda. I would tell you there's different service industries, like chiropractors, doctors, you know, sometimes dentists. You know, they base their process around when they're open is based upon their agenda. You know, they're open. Okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 12, then 3 to 6, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays a half a day, and you know what I mean? That's based upon their agenda. It's not based upon the client experience. So
Right.
you really need to design your processes based upon the client experience. And I work with a lot of chiropractors, so chiropractors can't get mad at me because my husband's a chiropractor. But we have multidisciplinary clinics, and he knows not to do that. So you need to design your customer experience, your processes around your customer experience in mind. McDonald's did this in the 40s. Did you ever watch the movie The Founder?
Yes, I did.
Best movie ever, right? Such a
Hmm.
great movie. So remember back in the 40s, McDonald's said, we want to develop a fast food restaurant. This was McDonald Brothers, not Ray Kroc. We
Hmm.
want to develop a fast food restaurant around our customer experience. We want to design the processes around our customer experience. We want the customer to experience great tasting food that's hot, that's fast.
Hmm.
How do we do that? Do you remember, Steve, when they went to the tennis courts and
Yeah,
they
they
erased
put
everything
tape everywhere, or it was chalk, and they drew their kitchen and worked on the flow, the
and worked on
process.
the floor? Remember they kept bumping into each other?
Yeah.
Until they finally figured out who takes the customer's order, who toasts the buns, who puts the burgers on the
There you
buns,
go.
who puts the pickles on the buns that gives it to the client and you know fast, right?
Great.
So even though that was done so long ago and tweaked and enhanced along the way, those processes designed around the customer experience is why you can eat at a McDonald's anywhere in the world and still get the same experience, right? They
Hmm.
never said it's going to be healthy for you. They never said it's going to be organic. They said it's going to be great tasting food fast. And
Yeah.
that's what it is. They never said our customer service is going to be great because the customer service is not great at most locations. You know,
Hmm.
it's not like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A built their processes around customer experience, just like Zappos built their processes around, you know, their slogan was happiness. We create happiness, happy employees, happy customers, happy employees, happy clients. So you really got to think about that because have you ever dealt with a business, Steve, where, oh my gosh, you're on your phone pushing this number and this number and this number and this number to get a
Hmm.
live person, or you have to tell your story to 5, 6 different people to get some resolve on your problem, right?
All right.
They did
And
it
you,
backwards. They designed the processes around their own agenda, not the customer experience.
number 4, the fourth P.
I want to say one more thing about processes.
Oh,
I
I'm
have to
ready.
say one more thing about
I'm
processes.
ready.
We have to have policy and procedure manuals. We have to have SOP checklist. We have to
Mm.
have employee
Oh,
handbooks
this
and
is so much
non-competes.
work, Michelle. Come on. This is so much work.
Well, you're not going to sell your business for $20 million because the first time that buyer
Well,
walks in, they're
this
going to
is
ask
why.
you for all of this.
This is why it can grow the value of your business exponentially to pay
Mhm.
attention to these details.
Right. And then hire Steve to come in and do your processes and policy and procedure manuals and SOP
Yeah.
checklists for you. So number 4, proprietary is the highest value driver of all the P's.
And
This
here's the
can take
teaser.
you, this
Here's
can
the
take you,
teaser. I
this
want
can,
to, Michelle, I want to stop here and tease
yep.
everybody. We're going to talk about this a little more in depth on the YouTube channel and our exclusive about databases, how they can be an example of this proprietary process that Michelle's talking to us about.
Yep. So just to give you guys a quick crash course evaluation, I'm going to be very quick here. So businesses that are, well, it's important for people to know this. Businesses that are under $1 million in EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, will typically trade for a multiple of under 5 times EBITDA. Businesses that are over $1 million in EBITDA will typically trade for a multiple of over 5 times EBITDA. You're never going to get a multiple of gross revenues unless you're a SaaS company. SaaS companies trade for a multiple of gross. Everything else is a multiple of EBITDA. Okay, adjusted EBITDA or seller's discretionary earnings. But here's what's important. I can take you from a 5 multiple to maybe a 7, 8, 9, 10 with proprietary assets. So proprietary assets are the number one value driver. There's 6 pillars to proprietary. I'll be very quick. I'll try to be quick. The last P's are quick. So branding. I don't want to shortchange people on proprietary. Branding. The more well branded you are, Steve, the more I can sell your company for, as long as your brand is relevant in the mind of the consumers. Is anybody paying any money for proprietary for Blockbuster? No. So the largest brand in the world, the most valuable brand in the world, do you know who it is?
Apple.
Apple. That's right. Ding, 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 you win.
I'm
So
winning just
Apple,
having you on the podcast, Michelle. This is a big win.
$249 billion is the Apple brand. 249 billion. That's without EBITDA, assets, inventory, accounts receivables, real estate, anything else, just 249 billion for just a brand. Trademarks are valuable. Trademarks are huge. Here's the biggest mistake that business owners make surrounding trademarks is they'll go to the state that they're opening up their business and they'll go get a state trademark, but they never check the federal database to make sure that that company name is available. So I've seen business owners be in business 5, 10, 15 years to receive a cease and desist letter in the mail that they have to stop using that company name. They hire an attorney, they throw cash at it, but you're still going to, in all likelihood, lose. And then you have to start the branding process all over again. So go spend the $1,500 to $2,000 and get a federal trademark. Federal trademark your company name. Federal trademark your podcast. Is your podcast federally trademarked, Steve?
It's in the process.
Because you just found out, or is it really in the
My
process?
company name is I did that, but yes, in the
It's in the process. Okay,
process,
good. So
yeah.
so same thing with Exit Rich. I trademarked Exit Rich. I trademarked ST6 fees, ST GPS exit model. Trademark everything that is your USP, your unique selling proposition, right? All right, very important. Then also patents. You ever watch Shark Tank?
Yes.
What's every investor ask every single inventor?
Do you have it patented?
Do you have a patent on that? Do you have a utility patent? Do you have a patent pending? Contracts, very valuable, Steve. Manufacturing contracts, distribution contracts, franchisor contracts for franchisees, exclusivity contracts. The most valuable of all contracts here are client contracts, especially if they have recurring revenue or a subscription model. Buyers love recurring revenue, they love subscription models, and they will pay a much higher multiple for that. Here's a caveat, and here's a mistake that every single business owner I've ever met in my 20 years makes this mistake.
I'm
You
listening.
have to have the 2-sentence transferability clause in your contracts because 99.8% of all sales are asset sales, not stock sales. And if your buyer doesn't agree to do a stock sale and the clients don't agree to consent to transfer, your deal could fall apart. So Exit Rich is all about crossing your T's, dotting your I's, and make sure there's no surprise when you get ready to sell your biggest asset, your business. So you want to make sure you have that 2-sentence transferability clause. Databases, which you keep bringing up. Databases are huge, especially if you have 1 million users, 1 billion users. They're repurposed. They can be repurposed. They can be retargeted. Facebook, we talked about this in the beginning, that Facebook paid $19 billion for Facebook that was not just losing money, hemorrhaging, but they had 1 billion users. So you can lose money, Steve, as long as you have some of these proprietary assets, and I can still sell your business for a profit. Here's the other thing in proprietary: celebrity endorsements. We have a client that has Oprah endorsing their products. A strategic competitor will pay top dollar for this business because they want to get their other products in front of Oprah. radio personalities who are endorsing your skincare, your diet company, they can only endorse one vertical because they lose credibility. So that's prime real estate. Do you know how hard it is to get on some of these huge radio talk shows with, I used to say Rush Limbaugh, unfortunately he passed away,
Mhm.
but Glenn Beck, the Kid Craddock show, any of these big celebrities, that's huge prime IP real estate. My e-commerce clients, if you can get any of those top positions on Wayfair, Etsy, Amazon, and your niche market, huge. I can get you a much higher multiple for any of these proprietary assets that we just talked about. That's
Love it.
proprietary. So the fifth P is Patreons. Patreons is your
Mhm.
customer database. You can't have a business without customers. Most businesses follow the 80-20 rule where 80% of your clients comes from 20%. 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients. If you lose a few clients, you can be out of business. We were once selling an advertising business that specialized in casinos, and casinos were their clients. We're selling them in the $10 million range. They have 5 clients. In the process, they lost 2, decreased their EBITDA and the revenues in half. So they weren't sellable anymore, not for
Mhm.
the price they wanted. So we ended up having to merge them. So this is very important. You want customer diversification, not customer concentration.
Right.
Um, However, if you have customer concentration, doesn't mean we can't sell it. It means, Steve, that we have to find that needle in a haystack of a buyer, because we were sold a manufacturing company, oil manufacturing company. They had customer concentration with BP. They had 65% of their revenue tied up in the BP contract. And we appraised them for 9.8 million. We had 550 buyers. We had 12 LOIs, letter of intents, but most buyers were scared of the customer concentration. But we found a strategic that had similar products and similar services. They've been trying to get in BP for years and could never get in. They paid $15 million for 70% of the company, which was 126% more than the business was appraised for. This is how we do our job.
That's way better than you would have got on a Shark Tank.
That's right. And then, so the last P, and the most important P to all of your listeners, all of your followers, is profits. Everybody's in business to make money. People say, well, Michelle, why do you put profits last? I'm like, because profits is never the problem. Lack of profits is never the problem. It's a symptom of not operating on the other 5 Ps. I have clients that come to me and say, Michelle, I have a profit problem. I'm like, no, you have a people problem, or no, you have a process problem. Profits are not the problem. If you are losing money, go back and look at your other 5 Ps.
Love it. We've been listening to Michelle Seiler Tucker. She's the author of Exit Rich, the 6P method to sell your business for a huge profit on the ROI Online Podcast. So, Michelle, I like to ask, what's one question that nobody ever asked you that you'd love to talk about?
Gosh, I don't know, because I feel like I get asked everything. Um, Probably one of my hobbies. Nobody ever
What's
asked me what's my hobbies.
what's your hobbies besides blowing up people's businesses?
Work, work, and work. No. My hobbies are writing. I love to write. I like to write poems. I write books. Obviously, I have 3 books
Mhm.
out. I write poems. I write lyrics. I just love to write. I've always loved writing. My other hobby is, obviously, I work out. I don't know if that's really a hobby. I don't do it because I do it because I need to. And then travel, hanging out with friends, spending time with my 10-year-old daughter. Those are all my passions.
I love it. Michelle, you've been an awesome guest on the ROI Online podcast. And for those that want to hear about our exclusive discussion on databases on the YouTube channel, be sure to follow us over there. Michelle, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Well, first and foremost, can we tell your followers how to get Exit Rich?
Let's do that.
So I just want to tell you a couple of things about Exit Rich real quick.
Yes.
Number one is my co-author. My co-author is Sharon Lecter. She wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki.
Mm-hmm.
Been a New York Times bestselling author 5 times.
Nice.
And she is a CPA, financial literacy expert, the advisor to many different presidents. Exit Rich was endorsed by Steve Forbes, saying that Exit Rich is a gold mine for entrepreneurs entrepreneurs leave way too much money on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also, our foreword was written by Kevin Harrington, the original Shark on Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Brian Tracy, Tom Hawkins, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, all giving us glowing recommendations. Les Brown. So we are in the middle of pre-sales. Exit Rich comes out in June. You can go to exitrichbook.com right now, exitrichbook.com for $24.79. If you order exitrichbook.com, we will email you the digital download within minutes. So you can start reading. You don't have to wait till June. Plus, we'll ship the hardcover to your doorstep upon launch date. In addition, we will give you a lifetime membership into the Exit Rich Book Club, where if you like what you're hearing here, there's a lot more of video content there, plus documents to run your business, sample employee handbooks, sample non-competes, sample organizational charts, policy and procedure manuals, documents to sell your business, sample letter of intent agreement, sample purchase agreement, sample due diligence checklist, closing docs, everything, all the documents you need to run and sell your business are there, not only for your review, Steve, but for your download. This, if you went to an attorney to recreate these documents, it would be probably over $30,000 to recreate all these documents or more. And so they're all there for your download. Plus, we're given a 30-day membership over into our club CEOs. And this is a club where we have like-minded entrepreneurs, where we ask those transformational questions, where we help business owners plan that sustainable, scalable, sellable business. So go get your copy of Exit Rich Book.
Do it now.
Today at exitrichbook.com.
Just listening to this podcast has been valuable, and all of those assets, they will revolutionize your business.
Right. And then also one more way you can get a hold of me, or two more ways. My other website is seilertucker.com. You can also text Michelle to 888-526-5750. All of my websites will pop up, all of our social media. Follow me on social media and connect with me on LinkedIn.
That's seilertucker.com. That's SEILER Tucker.com. Michelle, what an awesome guest you've been on the ROI Online Podcast.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap. Okay. Now here's the thing that I was really excited to listen to one of your podcasts, and I try to get it across. We help our clients not only get their act together, but we help them implement a CRM and a database. Okay. And of all the reason you would do any marketing online is to collect a name and an email address, because that's the gold of our day. And so I would love for you to kind of talk about this on this exclusive topic about databases and how valuable they can be and grow the exponential value of your business.
So you want to do another one?
Well, we're just doing the exclusive wrap up for my YouTube channel.
Okay. So I kind of said that in
like 5 or 10 minutes. Let's just nail this right here.
So I said that kind of a little bit in proprietary, right? About databases.
But I want to really make it super clear. That's why I'm asking this right now. It's a piece that I wanted to have and is exclusive. Let's just talk a little bit about databases and why they're so valuable.
Okay. I get a drink of water. Okay. I'm ready when you are.
All right. So Michelle, we've had an awesome conversation and we've discussed your 6 Ps. And one of the things that is a proprietary value to a business, we work with our business owners and we help them get moved into a CRM, a customer relationship management system. And I'm surprised at how many businesses just don't have those. They've got business cards and Tupperware boxes and shoved in files and in the back seats of cars, but they don't realize the true value of a database. And when I heard you talking about it, I really was like, this is excellent. I wanted to talk a little bit further about how valuable that is.
It really is extremely valuable. And you kind of got, I kind of started chuckling when you mentioned about business owners having, cards and, containers and Tupperware. And You forgot to mention shoe boxes. Um, but we once had a business owner. We were trying to a business that we were trying to sell, and it was a distribution company, extremely profitable. And the owner was in his late 70s, and the problem was everything was on paper. They
Hmm.
had everything. They had no computers. Talk about no databases. They had no database. They had no computers. They had everything on Rolodexes, paper Rolodexes, the whole contact list. And they had lots and lots and lots of customers were all on Rolodex. That's so old school. All their inventory system, everything was on paper. And I'm like, God, heaven forbid if this place ever catches on fire,
Right.
because, or a hurricane. I mean, we had a hurricane in New Orleans called Hurricane Katrina. You
Hmm.
probably heard of it. And he was almost completely wiped out. He wasn't even able to work and get back in his office and get that database. You have to have a CRM. You 1000% cannot run your company without a CRM. You have to have that customer relationship management company. And let me tell you something, when buyers go to buy a business, one
Hmm.
thing they want to do is look at that CRM, look at how many clients you have, look at how many active, how much, how active they are, how many touch points you have. And that's everything, because a lot of times those clients can be repurposed, they can be retargeted. If you got a competitor or strategic looking to buy your business and you have 100,000 clients in your CRM, you're going to get a much higher multiple for that. I mean, we have 28,000 buyers in our CRM that we nurture on a regular basis. And so when I go to sell my company one day,
Hmm.
that's going to be extremely valuable. But not only is it valuable, it makes you more efficient, it makes you more productive. You know, if you want to be profitable, you have to streamline, you have to get your processes together. And the most important part of the process is your CRM. You cannot live without it. You cannot run a business without it. I have several CRMs. I don't have one, I have several. It's funny because I partnered with a graphics company a while back. They called me about selling their business, and it was two owners, husband and wife, and they had one employee. And it was a specialty graphics company. They place graphics on all first responders, so the ambulances, the fire trucks, police cars, etc. The owner called me in a panic. He's like, I got to sell this business. I'm like, why do you have to sell this business? And he said, my wife and I are about to kill each other. We're working 14, 16 hours a day. And he says, I have one employee. He says, Michelle, I don't have the business acumen to grow this business to the next level. I can't do it anymore. Plus, we took out a mortgage on our family home. And I said, okay. And then he says, but we have the best product in the country. And he says, it's so good. We're turning down 6,000 clients a year. And when he said we're turning down 6,000 clients a year, I'm like, oh my gosh. Ding, 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 ding. I go, where are you putting these clients? I said, do you have a CRM? He goes, no, we don't have a CRM. I go, what? How do you not
Yeah.
have a CRM? And so then at that point, I said, well, your business is not sellable, but today you can consider yourself lucky that you just won the lottery because you got me. If you would have got anybody else, they would have put your business on the market. Your business is not sellable because it's all you. It's all you and your wife. So
Right.
anyway, I invested in their business, invested money, took them out of their garage. They had an office garage on property, took them out of there, leased a 6,000 square foot building, hired 20, 25 employees, got a COO. And guess what we did, Steve?
Mm.
We got a CRM,
Oh my gosh.
and it completely was a game changer. The first one we got was the wrong one. So you got to align yourself with somebody like Steve to make sure that
Hmm.
he knows your business inside and out, and he can make sure that you have the right database, right CRM. And it really was the wrong one. So then we got another one. It's a game changer. There was
Yes.
no more guessing on jobs, no more losing money on waste because they don't know how to price a job. Now when I ask them for a number, before I would ask them for the number, and they're always like, and they're trying to figure it out. There is no figuring out because everything is in the CRM. All their
Yes.
clients are in there. They're not losing clients anymore. They improved efficiencies, they improved productivity, and like I said, they don't lose clients anymore. Before they were like had cards everywhere, had Rolodexes everywhere, had everything on paper. Now it's all in a CRM, all in a database. You cannot have a successful business without a CRM, without a database.
And I love the way that you package that with the perspective that this is a proprietary piece of your business. That CRM is so valuable, and people just overlook that. So I
Well,
really appreciate that.
most advisors overlook it too, Steve. Most advisors don't know how to value databases. So, which is why you should always come to Seiler Tucker because we know how to value, we know how to evaluate proprietary, especially databases. So databases are huge. And let me tell you something. Once we got all the six P's in place, because the P's they were missing was people. They didn't have the people. They didn't have the processes. But they had a great product. They didn't really have anything proprietary because a database is proprietary. I mean, that's a huge value driver. That's one of the number one value drivers of anything. Once they got all that, he is coming up with the best ideas ever. He's so innovative. He comes up with all these inventions, him and his wife. This is the same gentleman that told me he didn't have the business acumen to grow the business to the next level.
Right.
He has a business acumen, but he was stuck in the chaos. He was stuck in the day to day. He was stuck in the transactional versus the transformational. And he wasn't, the company wasn't organized. So when we got that, and I will tell you, out of all the changes that we've done for this company, getting this CRM was the biggest change, complete game changer, because you're not hiding anything anymore. The numbers are there, you know, the cost is there, what it costs, people are like saying, oh, well, we didn't make an error there. Well, yeah, you did. So it's just so valuable in so many different ways that number one, you never have a sustainable company that's scalable without a CRM, and you'll never maximize value without that CRM, without that database.
Boom, mic drop. Michelle Seiler Tucker, you've been such a wonderful guest on the ROI Online Podcast. I've just really have enjoyed it.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here, and hopefully we can reconnect again.